The people in this room might already be like ready to go, right? Ready to have a different conversation on disability and sitting here thinking like, we're so far beyond that, right? But I don't think we are, unfortunately. So our language, I'm just gonna share a few choice words, right? Crazy, spaz, lame, retard, gimp, freak, maniac, invalid, tragic, psycho. I could go on. But these words are unfortunately not uncommon. They are all rooted in the disability experience, and they are usually used, if not always used, common day, to talk about something other than disability, right? But to talk about something bad. Okay? How many times a day do we say or hear crazy? Right? I mean, it's pretty insidious. I'm trying to unlearn that myself, and it's hard. Because again, this is our language, this is our society, this is what we know. Metaphors, right? Explicitly, a metaphor is meant to not, not explicitly define something. So these are descriptors, but they are still consistent with the dominant narrative. She turned a blind eye. It fell on deaf ears. The economy was crippled with debt. He's a real stand-up guy. You'd have to be crazy to want blah, blah, blah. I was paralyzed with fear. He's a lame duck candidate. I can run circles around that other person. So again, here, these metaphors, none of them are meant to actually describe disability, but they either use disability to describe something bad, or they use non-disability to describe something good. So you can see that this is what we're swimming around in. Right? Even when we don't mean it. The media. Like, how much time do we have today? I have a fun little sheet, and I don't know where I got it from, but it's called Media Bingo, and it's literally a bingo sheet, but it's not accessible, so I didn't share it today. But I chose some squares. So if you can imagine, like, opening the newspaper, turning on the news, pretend this is a bingo sheet, how quick could you get a bingo if you were really paying attention? She didn't let her disability stop her. He suffers from this condition. She was confined to a wheelchair, referring to the disabled in the aggregate, the deaf, the blind. We don't do that for men. The men think this, the women think that. We don't. If you saw her doing anything else, you'd never know she was disabled, right? Kind of that colorblind conversation. Right? People say that to me a lot. I don't even see your wheelchair. And I'm like, that is a lie. that is just not true. Defying the odds, right? Well, what are the odds? What do we make of that? Most of us could never imagine insert horrific impairment happening to us, but through the miraculous assistance of something completely non-miraculous, right? Like a service dog. The courageous battle, we talked about that a lot with disability and illness. Proving you can achieve anything if you really try. So these are all common, and I think it's brilliant. I think this little activity is brilliant because I think sometimes people try to talk in a way that's professional and sophisticated, and that's even worse, right? Because then you fall back on all of these kind of wacky ideas about disability. So now we get into the audience participation part of our conversation. So we must look at social media as well when we're looking at the messages that media generally presents to us about disability. So I'm going to describe these images, and I'd love for you to jump in with any comments. Going around clockwise, this is from a disabled person's blog. It says, disability problem number 22, you're such an inspiration. Moving around to the right, there's Christopher Reeve dressed as Superman. I think a hero is an ordinary individual who finds strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. Now, the Christopher Reeve Foundation does a lot to support people with spinal cord injuries. And of course, Christopher Reeve had a spinal cord injury, and he's since passed away. And I think that many of us in the disability community were hoping for something bigger from the Christopher Reeve Foundation around perhaps education or resources for sports or education, things like that. But it was overwhelmingly focused on curing spinal cord injury. which is very much in line with our stereotypes and our, kind of understanding, very narrow understanding of disability, is that you must want to walk again. Never ignore somebody with a disability. You don't realize